Little children enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus' disciples sometimes argued about who is the greatest among them. This debate became even more intense when Jesus was heading for Jerusalem, because the disciples knew that Jesus would definitely be seated somewhere high and that Jesus would only seat 2 of the disciples next to him. So the disciples even fought over this, clueless about how Jesus felt. Heading to Jerusalem to take his cross and suffering, the disciples were only thinking about their own glory. That was pretty pathetic of them. One day, the disciples asked Jesus, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" They probably wanted to hear Jesus say that the disciples who were following Jesus and not the great priests or the Pharisees were the greatest. But Jesus called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." The disciples were asking Jesus who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and Jesus was telling them who can actually even enter the kingdom of heaven. The disciples must have been confused by Jesus' answer, because it sounded like Jesus was saying, "Ask who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven if you can actually even enter the kingdom of heaven." There was absolutely no doubt in the minds of the disciples that they would enter the kingdom of heaven because they were Jesus' disciples after all. In fact, not only were they sure that they'd enter the kingdom of heaven, but they were wondering who would be the one seated highest. It had never even crossed their minds that they might not even be able to enter the kingdom of heaven. And they must have been so startled when Jesus called a little child to talk about the kingdom of heaven. Sure, children are treated with love and care today, but children at the time were insignificant in the eyes of adults. So, what were the disciples supposed to learn from such little children? When Jesus told the people to be like little children, he said that they must change and become like them. Jesus used the word change often when he told people to confess and repent their sins. When the disciples wished to become greater, be seated higher, and be treated better by others, Jesus placed a little child among them and said they must change. And by that, Jesus was telling them, if you wish to be seated in a higher position than others, do not compare yourself to others, but do your best in everything. If you wish to be treated by others, learn to serve others first. Jesus told us to become like little children because rather than comparing, they have a pure heart and do not wait for others to serve them. Let's remember that we cannot enter the kingdom of heaven if we wish to be greater and higher than others, and if we compare ourselves with others. If we do our best in what is given to us rather than comparing ourselves with others, and if we love each other rather than trying to beat others, I'm sure Jesus will call us all to the kingdom of heaven and be with us there.